Welcome back to the Creator Age podcast. We are diving into a fascinating take on intelligence
Mm.
today. And we're not just talking about IQ. It's more about like this deeper kind of intelligence, the kind that helps you, you know, get what you want out of life, you know, achieve peak performance and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating idea that true intelligence, it's not just like book smarts, it's about navigating the world effectively,
Yeah,
getting to those goals.
for sure. For sure. It's like there's like a whole other side to intelligence, a side that we often like totally miss.
Yeah.
And what I found really interesting is this whole idea of cybernetics, that like signs of steering yourself towards your goals.
Yeah.
Have you ever looked into that at all?
Oh yeah, totally. It's really amazing how our minds actually work like a cybernetic system. Think
Oh,
about it, right? We set a goal, take action, get feedback from the world, and then we adjust, based on that feedback. It's like a constant loop, learning and adapting.
like it's like a ship
Mm.
navigating to a lighthouse.
Yeah.
It sets its course,
Yeah.
but it's constantly adjusting
Yeah.
based on the instruments, the conditions.
Exactly. And like something applies to a thermostat, right?
Right.
Regulating the temperature.
Yeah.
Or your pancreas, responding to blood sugar. They're all like systems designed to hit a specific goal through feedback, through
Yeah.
adjustment.
That's like such a clear way to picture it. And what's so cool is that this cybernetic model, it applies to everything,
Oh, yeah,
like business, relationships, personal growth, all of it.
totally. Like every area. And the more we understand this process, right, the better we get at steering towards
Right.
the things we want to get to.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because if intelligence is all about navigating towards goals,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
That kind of means that those who are like super intelligent are really good at like, iterating, persisting, learning from mistakes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Like high intelligence. It's not about never failing. It's about using those failures,
Right.
right? That's the feedback to get better, to refine the approach, keep going. It's embracing the whole like experiment, the learning process.
I love that. It really like flips the script on how we usually think about intelligence. It's not just like fixed, innate. Like it's something you can actually develop, cultivate.
Totally. Exactly. It's not just about being smart. It's about becoming smarter, putting in the effort, the
Mhm.
practice.
So then, if we want to boost our intelligence, though, like in this way, the first step's got to be getting clear on our goals, right?
Right.
But that's like the tricky part, isn't it? Because how do we even know if we're choosing the right goals? What if we're just chasing what everyone expects of us?
Yeah.
You know?
That is such a key question. So many of us, we're just like programmed,
Well,
with these default goals: go to school, get the job, retire. But are those really the goals that like truly fulfill us, or are they just like handed down from the generation before us?
It's like we're like living someone else's script. We're not writing our own.
Right. And the thing is, our minds are wired to chase goals, whether we pick them or not. So if we're not intentional about setting our own goals, we're kind of letting our subconscious or society dictate where we're headed.
Kind of scary when you put it like that. But like, how do we even break free from those like pre-programmed goals?
Yeah.
How do we start making our own path?
The first thing is awareness, right? Just realizing those default goals are there and questioning them. Like, do these really match what I want? A good way to think about it, I think, is like a camera lens.
Okay.
Our goals, they act like that lens. They decide what we focus on, how we see the world around us.
Oh, I like that. So if our goals are like blurry,
Yeah.
unfocused,
Yeah.
then our reality is going to be blurry and unfocused too.
Exactly. Exactly. And the opposite is true too, right? The clearer our goals, the sharper, more focused our reality gets. We start seeing opportunities we missed before, and we start attracting what we need to achieve those goals.
Yeah.
The right people, resources, all that.
It's all making so much sense now. It's
Yeah.
like our goals actually shape the reality we live in.
Yeah.
So we got to be deliberate about what we choose to focus on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's also key to understand like the role of the ego in this. No, I don't mean ego in like a bad way, but more like that storyteller part of us.
Okay.
The part that's always interpreting our experiences, trying to make sense of the world, right?
So we're not fighting the ego. We're kind of like using it to our advantage.
Exactly. The key is to develop it, to expand it, not to try and suppress it.
This is all super fascinating, but I'm curious. How does all this tie into the idea of reaching like those higher levels of intelligence? Is there a connection there?
Oh, absolutely. And that's where these stages of psychological development come in. We'll get into that in the next part of our deep dive.
This is getting juicy. I can't wait to hear more about those stages, how they connect to intelligence, achieving our goals, all that.
It's a really fascinating journey, and I think it'll give you some pretty practical insights to unlock your potential.
Awesome. So we talked about goals, right? How they shape the way we see things. But you mentioned these stages of psychological development. Where do those fit in?
Yeah. These stages, they kind of give us like a roadmap, to
Mhm.
understand how our thinking changes over time, starting from like really basic self-centered views to more complex ways of seeing the world.
It's like leveling up our consciousness or something.
Exactly. And as we move through those stages, right, our intelligence, our ability to reach our goals, it all grows. Now, there's like a bunch of models out there for this, but one I like breaks it down into three categories: pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional.
Okay, let's unpack those. What are the pre-conventional ones all about?
Those are like the early childhood stages. Think about toddlers, little kids. Their world is all about their own needs. Me, right? They haven't figured out how to see things from someone else's point of view yet or understand, like, how society works.
Right, right. It's like their understanding is limited, like super egocentric.
Yeah.
So how do we move past that? How do we get to the conventional stages?
That usually happens when we hit adolescence, young adulthood. We start to internalize the rules, the norms. We want to fit in, follow the rules, succeed within the system.
So that's when we start caring about like social status, popularity, good grades, climbing that corporate ladder.
Exactly. The conventional stages, it's all about playing by the rules of the game. And a lot of people, they stay there their whole lives. They get good at working within the system, but they don't question it or even think about what's outside of it.
They're playing the game without realizing they can change the rules.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And here's the thing. Even some of those super smart people we talked about with the high IQs, the fancy degrees, they get stuck there too.
Really? I think intelligence would help you see past the limitations of like conventional thinking.
Not always. Remember, intelligence here, it's not just about knowing stuff or solving problems within a system. It's thinking critically, questioning assumptions, seeing totally new possibilities.
So you can be super smart, successful within a system, but still be trapped by it.
Exactly. And that's where those post-conventional stages come in. This is where it gets really interesting because people start breaking free from that conventional thinking, seeing the world from a much bigger, more complete perspective.
Okay, now I'm really curious. Tell me more about these post-conventional stages. What makes them so different?
The main thing is they develop this ability to see things from multiple perspectives. They can understand different points of view, hold ideas that seem to contradict each other all at the same time.
So instead of just black and white, they see all the shades of gray in between.
Exactly. And they also get systems thinking. They see how everything connects, how actions in one area ripple out to affect other areas.
It's like that seeing the matrix thing we talked about. You're not just accepting the world as it is, you're starting to understand the code behind it.
Exactly. And with that understanding comes freedom, agency. You're not bound by those old ways of thinking anymore. You can make your own rules, design your own systems, and really shape your own reality.
This is blowing my mind. So what do these post-conventional stages actually look like, in real life? Give me some examples.
Sure. Let's start with the first one, the pluralist stage. This is where people start questioning everything they've inherited, beliefs, values from their family, culture, society. They see the world as much more diverse, complex than they ever imagined.
I could see how that would be exciting, but also kind of scary. It's like you wake up and realize there's so much more out there, but you got to let go of some of the things you used to believe in.
Exactly. It can be disorienting, but it's also really freeing. And a good example is those people who, like, questioned authority when they were younger, explored different ways of living. Think about those counterculture movements. They were driven by people who were starting to see the limits of the old ways and wanted something more.
That's fascinating. So what comes after that initial wake-up call? How do people move past the pluralist stage?
The next one is often called the strategist stage. This is where people really start to understand themselves, their place in the world. They focus on self-development, personal growth. They see their life as a journey of learning and evolving.
So they're not just trying to fit in anymore. They're actively creating their own path.
Exactly. And a big part of this stage is that intuition, that big picture thinking. It becomes just as important as logic and rationality. Strategists see connections others miss, and they're driven by a deep sense of purpose.
It's like they start trusting their gut more, relying less on what others think or what society expects.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And they're also getting more comfortable with uncertainty. They get that the world is complex, always changing, and they're not afraid of the unknown.
This is really hitting home for me. I've always loved exploring different ideas, philosophies, and I definitely feel like I've been on a self-discovery journey most of my life. But how do we even know if we've hit this strategist stage? What are some of the signs?
One big sign is a shift in priorities. For strategists, exploration, discovery, that becomes more important than just achieving goals or making money. They're more interested in expanding their knowledge, understanding things better, and becoming the best version of themselves.
So it's almost like the pursuit of knowledge and growth becomes the goal itself.
Exactly. And they're not as worried about what other people think. They're focused on living a life that's true to their own values.
This is really inspiring. But is there another level to this? What comes after the strategist stage?
There is. And this is where things get, really mind-bending. It's often called the construct-aware stage.
Okay, you got me hooked. What does it even mean to be construct aware?
People at this stage, they deeply understand how our minds create reality. They see through the illusions that most people are trapped by, and they even recognize the limits of their own perspective.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah.
Can you give me like a real life example of what that might look like?
Imagine someone who's believed in a certain religion or political ideology their whole life. In the construct-aware stage, they might start questioning the core ideas of that belief system. They might see how their beliefs have been shaped by how they were raised, their culture, their own experiences.
So they're becoming aware of the lens they've been using to see the world, and they're starting to realize there are other lenses, other ways of interpreting reality.
Exactly. And this can be really tough because it means being willing to let go of deeply held beliefs and embrace a more fluid, dynamic understanding of truth.
I can see how that would be both freeing and terrifying. It's like stepping outside of your comfort zone, your worldview, and entering a space of infinite possibility.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it's in that space of infinite possibility that real creativity and innovation can happen.
So is there like an end point to this whole psychological development thing? Is there a stage beyond construct aware?
There's one more that's often seen as the peak. It's called the unitive stage. But before we jump into that, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll explore the unitive stage and talk about how all of these stages connect to deep work and achieving our goals.
Okay, so we were talking about that construct aware stage, right?
Yeah.
Where you start to see the limits of your own viewpoints, all the mental models that kind of shape how you experience reality. But you mentioned there's one more, the unitive stage. What's that all about?
This was really interesting because it's described as this state of connection, transcendence even. People in the unitive stage, they experience reality as a unified consciousness. They move beyond that separation, that duality that kind of defines the earlier stages.
It sounds kind of mystical, like enlightenment or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I can feel that way. People in this stage, they talk about this deep peace, this profound understanding of how everything's connected, and they're kind of detached from the ego, all its drama.
It's like they've gone beyond their individual self, tapped into some kind of universal consciousness.
Exactly. But here's the key. The unitive stage, it's not about rejecting or ditching the earlier stages. It's more like transcending A and D, including them. You see the value of each perspective, but you also see beyond its limitations.
So even though you've reached this higher level of awareness, you still get the importance of logic, reason, goals, all those tools that helped you get there.
Exactly. It's like integrating the wisdom from all those previous stages into a bigger, more holistic understanding of reality.
This is inspiring stuff, but it
Mhm.
also feels like a little intimidating. If reaching these higher stages takes like years of work, inner work, is there anything we can do now to speed up our growth, start using these insights today?
That's a great question. And that's where deep work comes in. It's about developing the focus, the discipline to make real progress toward your goals, no matter what stage you're at right now.
So deep work isn't just about grinding away at our to-do list. It's about tapping into that deeper intelligence, aligning our actions with our biggest vision.
Exactly. And one of the most powerful things about deep work is bringing your ideal future into the present. It's about taking actions that match that vision, even if it's just on a smaller scale at first.
So instead of waiting for the perfect time to start a business, write a book, you start doing those things now, even just for a few minutes a day.
Yeah. Let's say you want to write for 2 hours every morning. You don't have to magically find that time all at once. Start with 5 minutes, then 10, then 15. You build the habit slowly, make it a non-negotiable part of your day.
Like you're making these little investments in your dream every day.
Yeah.
And over time, those investments compound, create huge momentum.
Exactly. And the cool thing is what happens in your mind. By taking those little actions consistently, you're basically putting mental energy into that future you want, making that commitment stronger.
Like you're training your mind to believe that future isn't just possible, it's gonna happen.
Exactly. And the material I shared, there's this idea called conceptual survival that explains this. It suggests that our survival instincts, they go beyond physical safety. They also protect our sense of self.
So once we start building an identity around our goals or aspirations, we're naturally driven to protect that identity, help it grow.
Exactly. It's like our minds get wired to support that future version of ourselves. But deep work isn't just random actions, it needs focus, intention.
And that's where structure, routine come in. You mentioned this holistic daily routine framework. That can help a lot.
Yeah. This framework, it breaks the day into three parts: fill, empty, use. Fill is all about absorbing new info, inspiration, reading, podcasts, courses, anything that expands your knowledge, sparks those creative ideas.
So that's like the input phase, gathering all the raw materials for your work.
Exactly. Then there's empty. Super important for processing all that info. This is where journaling, meditation, spending time in nature come in. Things that help you de-stress, clear your mind, make space to think.
Like hitting the reset button on your brain before you jump back into work.
Exactly. And finally, there's use. This is where the deep work happens. It's your dedicated time for focused, uninterrupted effort on the tasks that really move you closer to your goals.
No distractions, no multitasking, just pure focused effort.
Exactly. And to make the most of that use time, the material I shared has this simple but powerful tool called the priority ladder.
Tell me about that. How does it work?
The priority ladder has four levels. At the top, there's vision building. Big picture activities aligned with your long-term goals, aspirations, like strategic planning, brainstorming, visualizing your ideal future.
So those are the things that set the direction for everything else.
Exactly. Then we have high leverage creative work. Tasks that use your unique skills and talents to create something new, something valuable. Writing, designing, coding, anything that lets you express yourself creatively and make a difference.
This is where you're putting those skills to work, bringing those ideas to life.
Then there's meaningful and spillover tasks. Important, but maybe not as demanding, things that contribute to your well-being, your growth, like learning new skills, connecting with people, taking care of your health.
And at the bottom, we have the maintenance tasks.
Huh?
Essential, but often not very fulfilling. The stuff that keeps your life running. Email, messages, errands, all that admin stuff.
Exactly. And the key to using this priority ladder is to structure your day so you're tackling those higher level tasks when your energy is highest, saving the less demanding stuff for when you're not as focused.
That's like a strategic approach to managing your energy.
Exactly. And it reminds us that deep work isn't about pushing yourself until you're exhausted. It's about working smart, aligning your actions with what matters most.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners? What's the big idea here?
We all have the potential to unlock amazing intelligence, creativity, but it takes a shift in mindset. It's about embracing learning throughout life, making deep work a priority, and designing our lives to support growth and evolution.
It's about showing up each day, committing to those small actions, even when they feel small, trusting they're leading us to a more fulfilling, impactful future.
It's a journey, but the rewards are huge.
Absolutely. If you enjoyed this deep dive on intelligence and deep work, make sure to subscribe for more explorations of powerful ideas and strategies to help you live a more intentional and fulfilling life.